Hello, and welcome to Rise Unwind. I'm Chris Molony. Each week, we connect with people across the country to share ideas, inspiration, and simple ways you can enjoy life right in your own neighborhood. On this week's show, we've got that and plenty more.
Most people who foster have no experience with kittens, and that's okay. When you sign up to foster for the animal shelter, they provide you with all of the training and mentorship that you need.
What if we found a way to grow more food for more people and heal the earth? That's what regenerative agriculture is, and that's what Groundswell shows us. So, wow, a movie could show us how to close this food gap that we see globally and heal the planet, yes.
So sit back, relax, and let's rise and unwind.
Some stories don't fade with time, especially when they involve trust, friendship, and betrayal. The new 3-part Hulu docuseries, Friends Like These, The Murder of Skylar Neese, revisits the 2012 disappearance of a West Virginia teenager and the shocking truth that followed. It's a story told through social media, personal interviews, and voices closest to the case. So joining us this morning are director Claire Titley and former FBI agent and polygraph examiner Dr. Rob Ambrosini. Thank you two for being here. How are you?
Thank you. Good. Thank you.
All right, Claire, what stood out to you about this case and what made you feel like it needed to be revisited now, more than a decade later?
I think one of the things that made me that was so kind of shocking about this case when I first kind of looked at it was the fact that it's 2012 and it's quite a unique era in a way for social media, because it was that era where social media was new. It was kind of a new frontier. It was the kind of Wild West though as well. And teenagers were experimenting with it. They were just putting their entire lives online. They didn't have the hindsight that we have now about kind of, what could possibly go wrong. But also it was an era where adults weren't really looking at social media. So nobody was kind of checking up on them. There were no sort of checks and balances. And that makes that generation of teenagers at that kind of time particularly unique. They're almost like the guinea pigs of social media.
And the series used Skylar's own words and social media posts that you said. How did that storytelling change the ways this story unfolds for viewers? I
think it was really important to us to try and give Skylar a voice. We didn't want her to just be a kind of a plot point in a true crime, where she's just the kind of victim and has no voice. We really wanted her to have agency in telling her own story, which is harder than it sounds, obviously when she's gone. But she left behind this incredible sort of archive of tweets, of digital messages, but also her own writing as well. So we worked very closely with her parents to make sure that we could just bring her voice kind of front and center, and that she could at least be a part of telling this story from the inside out. So we interview her friends as well, quite comprehensively, so that we can hear this story from the 16-year-old perspective, including Skylar herself.
And Dr. Ambrosini, you spent 24 years with the FBI. You've conducted thousands of polygraph exams. When you look at this case, what role did interviewing and behavioral analysis play in getting the truth?
Well, interviewing really played a significant role. And long before I became involved in the case, the two young girls, they were interviewed by case agents, state troopers, local police investigators. And during that process, you kind of started seeing this evolution of what really should be fact, right? When things are fact, it doesn't change, right? The truth is the truth, and it's always going to be the truth. But there were indications during these interviews that really did result in kind of like this evolution of their story. And of course, when that happens, the logical investigation is, why is this person changing that story, right? So this case is kind of about the behavior that's exhibited, the ideation, what's going on, what are they thinking, and how are they communicating? And that really speaks to the social media that you have here, which again was kind of in its infancy stage, if you will, compared to what it is now. So really, a lot of it did come down to the really significant interviews that the investigators were doing.
And one of the most unsettling aspects is how normal these friendships appeared on the surface. How does this case reveal about the hidden conflict, especially among teenagers?
I think what we really wanted to do with this series was kind of remind people what it's like to be 16. It's very easy to forget when you become an adult, and put that behind you. But about the fact that when you are that age, you're your brain behaves in such a way that, you know, your friends become much more important than your parents, than your family. Everything is very heightened. Your reasoning is off, if you like. Your idea of consequences, you know, is very different to that of an adult's. And when you have that combined with social media that is completely I say unregulated, but unwatched by anybody else, that's where the kind of combination was kind of so dangerous, really, I think, particularly for that generation who didn't have the hindsight that we have now.
And Claire, after someone watches all 3 episodes, what do you hope stays with them?
I hope people do reflect on their own use of sort of social media, on their children, on their family as well, and remember what it's like to be that age. But also, I hope that they come away from this feeling like they know Skylar, and you know, she would have turned 30 just a few weeks ago. So that's a life that she didn't have. And she should have gone to college. She wanted to be a lawyer. You know, there's all this life that didn't happen. And I'd love for people to come away knowing and remembering Skylar as she was.
Hey, I want to thank you two for joining me today. Friends Like These, The Murder of Skylar Neese, with all 3 episodes available to stream now on Hulu. I want to thank you two for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not every day you see daughters planning their mom's wedding, but that is exactly what this new series is all about. Mom the Bride flips the script and follows women helping their moms celebrate love later in life, from dress fittings to the big day itself. Erin Cahill hosts the series on Hallmark Plus, and she's joining us now. Erin, it's great to see you. How are you?
Hi, it's great to see you, Dan. Thanks for having me.
All right, this idea really flips the traditional mother of the bride role, but what stood out to you in this concept?
Oh, well, what you just said, you know, it's really flipping the script on weddings. You know, we're used to seeing, I mean, it's right there in the intro. We're used to seeing moms plan their daughters' weddings, but to see the daughters have the opportunity to do this for their mothers is honestly one of the sweetest things I've ever experienced in my life.
And each episode, it follows a different family. What kind of stories or moments can viewers expect to see?
Well, so it's 6 real mothers and daughters, 6 real weddings. And what you can expect to see is everything you would anticipate with a wedding. You know, the excitement, the stress, but also like inspiration and joy. And you can expect surprises in every episode. We really set our mind to surprising the brides and the families. And it is such a joy-filled ride, and it's all the emotions. That's the other thing you can expect. You can expect happiness, tears, laughter, you know, and being really touched.
And you mentioned there's a lot of emotion packed into this. What surprised you the most while working with these moms and daughters? You know,
I was pleasantly surprised at how much it meant to everybody. I knew, you know, in my heart that would be the case, but to see these daughters just want to get it so right for their moms, and then to see the moms letting go of the steering wheel, you know, and saying, okay, yes, take care of me for once, thank you, was just so special. It honestly, it's such an honor and a joy to be part of this with them. Oh, like, I will never forget it. I'll never stop being grateful. I'm not over it. We were filming for 6 months and I'm not over it.
And you've been part of so many Hallmark projects. How does hosting a series like this compare to acting in one?
Oh, I've never experienced anything like this in my life. I've never done anything, you know, unscripted in this way. And so to get to, you know, to get to go to work every day. I say work because it was such a joy, but to get to go to work and be part of this. I mean, I got to, like, you know, go to like cake tastings and dress fittings and go to pick out venues. And it was such a blast. It didn't feel like work. It just truly felt like a gift. And I fell in love with each one of these families so purely. So by the time the weddings came around, I was like,
And the show really celebrates love a little later in life and yes, family connection. What do you hope people take away after watching?
Oh, I love that. You know, I hope that people feel inspired by what you just said, that connection, that family bond. I hope people feel, mothers and daughters for sure. Of course, I hope you get related back to your own love and you're like, oh, you want to call your mom and say, I love you. Or, mothers call their daughters and say, I love you. But really it's about the whole family. I hope that people just feel so inspired about love and connection and family and celebrating that.
Erin Cahill, I really want to thank you for joining us today. Mom's the Bride is now streaming on Hallmark Plus, so you can watch the full series pretty much any time you feel. All right, Erin, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
Most people think it could never happen to them until somebody suddenly takes over a property and the legal process turns into a total nightmare. A&E's series Squatters follows Flash Shelton and his team as they help homeowners reclaim their homes in some pretty tense and emotional situations. Flash pretty much first got in this world after dealing with some squatters in his own family home, and now he's helping people across the country. Welcome to the show, Flash. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, your story started when squatters took over your mom's home. What was that experience like for your whole family?
I kept it from my family actually, until later, but I couldn't tell my mom. My dad had just passed away, and I moved her in with me to sell her home and to help her have a fresh start and, closer to family. But, navigating that situation and learning all about squatters is what I needed to do to just be the good son. And my family, I couldn't tell my mom. She was still distraught over my dad. I just told her that I needed a lease so I could go up and be on the property to do some repairs. And, it was successful. I learned a lot about squatters and I out-squatted them. I figured if they could take a house, I could take a house.
And now that the show is out, what kind of reaction have you been getting from some of the viewers?
Everyone's excited. And, I think that the fact that the awareness is, it's teaching people what a squatter is and that they are normal people. They are just entitled and figured, that there's a flaw in the system. They should be able to take advantage of it. I think, people truly understanding that squatters are not homeless people. So squatters and a homeless in a housing crisis have nothing to do with each other.
And some of these situations on the series tend to be really intense. Was there one case in the season that surprised even you?
Yeah, I had a case where, there's several people and, I'm always hearing that, they're drug dealers or they're, committing crimes on the property or something. And, a lot of times it's I have to look into it and I don't find any evidence of that. But in other cases, we just have to go in extremely careful. I don't want anyone to get hurt, including a squatter. So I think that the fact that, it's just there are different types of cases every single day and different stories. So at this point, it's like, I don't know that anything surprises me.
And what do most people misunderstand about the squatting laws and how difficult these situations can become for homeowners?
I think that there is a misconception about squatter laws and tenant laws. Tenant laws in a lot of states were written under the, guides that a homeowner is rich and a tenant is poor. But anyone who owns a home knows that just because you own a mortgage doesn't make you rich. And tenants are not all poor. Some people just choose to rent. So, it's I think that there's a misconception about the laws themselves and the fact that there is no line between a squatter and a tenant. So squatters are assuming tenant rights.
And after helping in more than 100 cases, what advice would you give homeowners to help protect themselves before something like this happens to them?
Documentation, like being able to document when an intruder enters and how they enter. In today's day and age, there is no excuse not to have a camera that you can monitor from your phone anywhere in the world. When somebody walks up your driveway, you get alerted. When somebody goes into your mailbox, you get alerted. If you can monitor when they enter, they are now arrested as a trespasser and they will never become your squatter.
Flash Shelton, I really want to thank you for joining me today. You can catch episodes of Squatters now on A&E with streaming available on the A&E app and at anetv.com. Flash, thanks for joining me again today.
All right, thanks for having me.
A lot of action franchises try to go bigger every time, but Jack Ryan Ghost War is also digging into trust, loyalty, and what service really costs. The new film continues the world's fans already know while standing on its own for people jumping in fresh. And joining us today is the legendary Wendell Pierce, who returns as James Greer. Wendell, it's great to have you on the show, my friend. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, James Greer has always been one of the most grounded characters in this world. What do you enjoy most about stepping back into him for Ghost War?
The character of James Greer really reflects some of the people that I met doing the research of this character. You know, real CIA officers, retired, who have kind of given me their true north to form a more perfect union, and some of the debate that they have within the agency, and but understanding that the shared idealism of working on the mission, which is to form a more perfect union and protect that. You know, those are shared values. And so stepping back into the role, that's the thing that I'd love to portray. You know, as an actor, you're a student of human behavior. And what you want to do is create the world so strong that it induces that behavior. And that's the great thing about reliving a role like James Greer.
One thing John Krasinski mentioned is that the story works for both longtime fans and for people who've never watched the series. Was that something you felt like while you were making it too?
Oh, absolutely. You don't have to be familiar with the series at all. You can come to this fresh. You will see the history that we have as characters. You will see our relationship. You will see our expertise. And then also you have this story of what's happening now, this casual act that I ask a favor of Jack Ryan to do for me that actually ignites a global espionage chase. And so it is one of those things that people who have seen the series can come to and appreciate the next level of where we take the characters, and people who come to this fresh and new. But what we do over the course of a series, put into a 2-hour movie, is just heightened and it makes it a lot more intense.
And you said it's been heightened, it's more cinematic, a little bigger, but it also keeps the political and moral tensions that Tom Clancy's stories are known for. What kind of balance does this film strike between action and some of the character?
Well, you know, I think it's very important. I'm very proud of the fact that we keep the debate happening about the clarity of mission and clarity of what values are, and the political debate that happens around that, because that is happening within the world, what happens within the agency, and it makes you, as the viewer, look at it and decide what your values are. You know, I mean, that's the forum of what filmmaking should be about, the place where we collectively come together, reflect on who we are, decide where we want to go, decide what our values are, maybe bring that into our lives. And so I love that we have that debate, and at the same time have some of the best cinematic thrill sequences of action comparable to the French Connection and Marathon Man and all of that. You know, so I'm very proud of the cinematic and the debate that happens within the film.
And fans, they know you from so many incredible roles from over the years, but there's something about Greer that people really connect with. What do you think keeps audiences invested in this character and this franchise?
I try to make James Greer a everyman. You know, that people look at it and go, there, but by the grace of God go I. You know, that they can see themselves in James Greer. He's a man of pragmatism. He's a family man. He's flawed as he tries and did not succeed in keeping his family together. But with all of that, he is principled. And he attempts to hang on to his principles and values. And people will see themselves in that, you know. Not someone who's perfect, but someone who's pragmatic and at least tries to live by some sort of moral code. And that's who we all are, and that's who we are when we dream of who we can become. So that's the thing that makes him prescient, and personal. And that's what I pride myself on when I try to portray him.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. Jack Ryan, Ghost War premieres May 20th on Prime Video. Wendell Pierce, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Most of us don't spend much time thinking about the soil beneath our feet, but a new documentary argues it may play a bigger role in our future than we realize. Groundswell follows farmers, scientists, and communities around the world who are using regenerative agriculture to restore soil, improve food systems, and tackle some major environmental challenges. Joining us are the film's directors Josh Tickell and Rebecca Harrell Tickell. Welcome to the show, you two. How are you?
Great, thanks for having us.
All right, so for the viewers who haven't seen Groundswell yet, what is the big idea behind the movie and what drew you to tell this story?
Well, Groundswell is a story of healing the planet, healing our soil, and healing our bodies. So really, this is a film that's for everybody. It's a family film. It's a friendly film. It's got Demi Moore, Woody Harrelson. And if you're interested in a positive, good news story that results in better health for you and your family, this documentary is a no-brainer. You got to watch it.
And the documentary, it travels across several continents and highlights a wide range of communities. What were some of the most surprising or inspiring examples that you encountered along the way?
We traveled with our 8 and 10-year-old kids as well, and we started at a refugee settlement in northern Uganda where people who survived war were building food forests and regenerating a desert. And we traveled the whole world with them, and we saw through the lens of young people this movement that really is going to stabilize the climate, and the pioneers and leaders who are using these innovative practices, which are really based on indigenous practices, to not only heal their bodies, stabilize their microclimate, but also make a profit, because regenerative agriculture is profitable for the farmer.
So one of the film's central themes, you said, is regenerative agriculture. What does that mean in practical terms, and why do you believe it's gaining momentum around the world?
This is the natural evolution of our farming. We hear a lot about, especially in the investment community, about ag tech and fintech. Well, we've got 1 billion people that don't have access to enough food on the planet. So what if we found a way to grow more food for more people and heal the earth? That's what regenerative agriculture is. And that's what Groundswell shows us. So, wow, a movie could show us how to close this food gap that we see globally and heal the planet. Yes, the good news is it's true and it's fun to watch, which is why we're here to get people excited about watching this movie, Groundswell.
And the film focuses on solutions and examples of progress. Were there any stories or people featured in Groundswell that changed the way you personally think about the future?
Yes. I mean, when we went to Kenya, when we were, again, with our kids, we saw how especially women are embracing these regenerative practices and rising up within their communities and becoming very valued members of their societies through healing the land. We're natural caregivers. And when we were in Kenya, we discovered that this group of Samburu women were using the milk from their goats to feed baby elephants, which had been basically brought to extinction in northern Kenya through poaching. And through regenerating and healing these baby elephants and bringing the elephant population back, they're able to save the grasslands in northern Kenya and bring back gentle rains. This is the importance of the symbiosis in nature of having animals and practicing regeneratively and keeping life in our fields instead of spraying them to death with chemicals and pesticides. When you have life, everything flourishes, everything blooms. And that's what we saw was happening in northern Kenya when they brought back the elephants.
Groundswell is available now for Prime Video. For more information about the film and regenerative agriculture movement it explores, viewers can visit Prime Video and learn more about the documentary. I want to thank you two for joining me today.
Thank you for
having us.
Every spring, animal shelters start seeing a huge spike in newborn kittens coming through their doors, and a lot of them need around-the-clock care. The good news is fostering may be easier and more approachable than people think. Hannah Shaw, better known online as the Kitten Lady, has helped educate millions of people about kitten rescues and care. She's joining us now with ways families can help during kitten season. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you so much for having me.
What exactly is kitten season, and why does it put so much pressure on shelters every year?
Yeah, well, kitten season sounds a lot cuter than it is for animal shelters. This is the time of year where the weather's warm and lots of cats are giving birth to kittens. And for shelters, that means an influx of kittens coming through their doors. So that can put a strain on shelters that are already sometimes strapped for resources. And that means this time of year, we really need as many members of the public as possible to sign up and help. We need adopters, we need volunteers, and we really need people to sign up to foster, especially those youngest kittens, so that they can make it to adoption age.
A lot of people probably assume fostering is complicated or only for experts. Is it easier to get started than people think?
Absolutely. Most people who foster have no experience with kittens, and that's okay. When you sign up to foster for the animal shelter, they provide you with all of the training and mentorship that you need. You can also find a lot of training resources on my website, kittenlady.org. I've got books, I've got videos, however you like to learn. But you do not have to have experience, and it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money either. You know, when you sign up to foster, you are going to get the vet care provided to you completely for free. And typically they'll also provide the supplies. One thing I always recommend is to sign up to foster for a Hills Food Shelter Love Shelter, because these are organizations that will be able to provide you with high quality nutrition for your kittens without it coming out of your pocket.
You mentioned Hills. They've been supporting shelters through their Food, Shelter, and Love program. What kind of impact has that had for shelters and adopters?
Oh, the impact of the Hills Food Shelter Love program is huge. They've been able to impact over 16 million cats and dogs finding adoptive homes. And that is through providing high quality nutrition to animal shelters. One thing that is incredible about this program is it doesn't just support the cats and dogs in the adoption program, but it also supports the kittens in the foster program. So when you sign up to foster through these animal shelters, you will actually get that science diet, kitten, wet and dry food, so that you can help get your kittens weaned onto solid food and ready for an adoptive home with that good start with the right nutrition for a long and healthy life.
When these kittens are just a few weeks old, what do they need most to stay healthy and grow properly?
Yeah, so my foster kitten Pixie here, she was only a couple hours old actually when I got her, and so she needed bottle feeding. She needed, to be kept warm with a heat pad. She needed help going to the bathroom, and then as she got older, she needed help with weaning. A lot of kittens need help because it's new to them to eat solid food, so sometimes they need hand feeding or spoon feeding, and that's something that foster parents can do just by sitting with them and providing them a little bit of extra attention during those first weeks of life when everything is new to them. Ultimately, once they reach 8 weeks old, they're big enough to be spayed and neutered, and at that point, they're pretty independent and can go to a forever home.
Where can people go if they want to learn more or find ways to help locally?
I recommend that people go to hillspet.com/shelter to find a shelter near them and find out where they can help.
Hannah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's it for Rise and Unwind. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to learn more about the show, visit our website at riseunwindtv.com. And for behind-the-scene moments and celebrity interviews, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rise Unwind. You can also find our full episodes on YouTube under the same name at Rise Unwind. Until next week, I'm Chris Molony. Thanks for spending a little time with us on Rise and Unwind.